My basic political views. The government itself should not be able to interfere with an individual's right to do whatever they want, so long as they aren't interfering or hurting somebody else. Now, this doesn't mean that some old lady's offended because some kids smoke pot. Just because her religious, political views are that it's wrong to put anything of that hinders or alters your mind. You know, as long as, if she views it as wrong for her, she shouldn't do it. But she shouldn't be able to say that there should be laws and rules saying that people that do it have to spend time in jail or spend money that they can't afford to lose because they choose to get out. Now, as far as the system we have now, it's too totalitarian for me. The government's able to control too much. When the government can come in and say, you can't put that in your body because we view it as wrong, because it's wrong according to the religion that we believe in, that is, we as your leaders, and then you should not be able to do it either. Now, see, you're saying at that point in time that because I denied this for myself, I should be able to deny it for you too. Now, because someone else doesn't view, you know, drugs is right for them, shouldn't be allowed to say, well, you can't do it either, because, you know, I don't do it, why should you? You know? You know, that's like, I guess, saying that, well, you know, take for instance religion. For a number of years, the practice known as Wicca was illegal in this country. Now, that's not right. You should not tell somebody what they should believe as an overall, you know, omnipotent force, or even that they should believe in any omnipotent force. You know? Because the simple fact is everybody is responsible for their own soul, for their own morality, or whatever. Everybody, if, you know, there is an overall creative force, is going to suffer for any punishment or anything that they've done that is wrong. You know, so it shouldn't be right for somebody to say that, well, we're afraid for your soul. You know? We're afraid for your soul. Well, in that fact, then they're taking responsibility for anything that you might do. You know? They're saying, well, I'm taking responsibility for you because I'm going to tell you how you should live your life. I'm going to tell you what's going to go into your mind, that is into your eyes visually, into your ears. We're going to tell you that you should interpret things our way. That is, you should interpret the signs and symbols or whatever that you see in our way. See, everybody's an individual. As they're growing up, they learn certain things through a certain set of, shall we say, blinders. Everybody has their prejudices. When you go and say that because my values are my values, they should be your values too, you're saying that you have, they're appointing themselves your guardian. And when you're over 21 or even 18 years of age, or even that, for that matter, when you're of an age old enough that you're conscious of right and wrong, then you're responsible for yourself. You're responsible for your own sins or actions or inactions. Not some bumbug up there in Washington sitting on his ass making 125 grand a year. You know, he has no idea what the real picture really is. He's too interested in getting elected to really care about the big picture. See, a political boss's main ambition is getting elected and staying elected. It has nothing to do with serving the people. He's in there for his own good. Not yours, not mine, not Joe Fox out in Egypt or out in California. His ideology is to get himself re-elected. He's going to do whatever it takes to get himself re-elected. Generally that means selling out to big businesses, so he has the money to buy the media coverage, so he's in people's minds, so they vote for him when they get... See, the more things change, the more they stay the same. The political industrial machine is a danger to the individual because it's out for its own good. It's a machine of its own right. It's a life form, I guess you would call it. All right, you've got the big executives at the head. I guess you could call them the brains of the creature. All right, they're making all the bucks. The little guy is not making a big killing off this. He may work his ass off, but the guy who isn't doing any work, sitting up in the office and on his ass, doing nothing but counting beans, or counting his, money that's coming in. He doesn't care about the little guy. All he cares about is production. His main focus is putting stuff out there. Stuff comes in. So when he's in control, the little guy's fucked. Because they're going to do whatever it takes to get the industrial, machine, the industrial monster. He's going to grease the gears with the workers' blood and sweat. That's how that machine works. All right. When you get people like that with power and money, and they're running these political bosses whose main purpose is to get elected, what's the little guy supposed to do? He's going to be fucked, All right, you got a state-sponsored religion, Christianity. You're going to be Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, whatever. You worship the Judeo-Christian ideology of God. My own religious views are different. I don't believe in things the way the Christians do. I don't believe in one overall benevolent God. If God was benevolent, the world wouldn't be in the shit pile it's in. People wouldn't be so damn selfish and evil. It's just boiled down to a truly benevolent God would not have made us. Simple and straightforward. If God made me to worship him, he's an idiot. It's like, it boils down to this. I got a free will. I'm going to decide for myself what I believe. They haven't managed to crush my will, and they've tried for years, It's like with the hair deal. What's the big deal? It's my hair. I'll grow it any length I please. And it's like they say, I try to get a job, and it's like, well, your hair is long. We can't hire you. You don't fit the little framework that we have established of what our workers should look like, what they should act like, and what they should dress like. You're going to fit into this hole. If you're a round peg, they're going to chip you off until you fit into their square hole. See? And I haven't allowed them to do that to me. It's simple as that. I do things my own way. I mean, I don't like being without money and a job. It's not that I care all that much about money. If I did, I'd damn well cut my hair off by now. And see, money is not my big driving force. My big driving force is my own internal fulfillment, I mean, I don't mean that in a greedy way, because I guess that's everybody's establishment, but I'm not out to get, tromp the other guy down to better myself. I don't try to use other people's stepping stones to get what I want. And I guess that's what galls me about a lot of people, is they try to use other people's stepping stones to get on top. It's like, they tromp all over everybody else. They smile to your face and then they stab you behind your back. It's like, sure, I guess basically to stay out of trouble with the establishment is to be a nobody and not be noticed. But even that, they gotta come down and fuck with you. I mean, it gets down to, you see people who just smoke a little herb, cops bust them and throw them in jail and take away their livelihoods, take away their money, everything. What's the deal? If somebody's smoking herbs, they're not hurting nobody else but themselves if they're hurting themselves at all. So what does it boil down to? It's like I said before. They're boiling down, they're saying what you can do with your body, how you'll look, how you'll dress, how you'll act. And if you don't fit those norms, they prosecute you and persecute you until you either fit. It's like, all right, I'm kind of a tangent. Take education, for example. It's run by the daggone insane machine that's trying to crush the American, All right, if you get the idea, the true idea of America, the true idea, an individual should be free to do what they want. Freedom of speech, for example, should have been trying to fulfill freedom. Freedom of speech means exactly that. I can say whatever I damn well do. Exactly. It comes down to not just what comes out of the mouth, but what, alright, you couldn't very well say freedom of media or visual, TV back in 1776. It didn't exist. There's no such thing. Radio didn't exist. So, it comes down to that, and the way the political bosses put it, simple fact, it boils down, well, this is bad for our kids. We'll really destroy our moral fiber, in the country. Moral fiber's been fucked for the last century, fuck kids. Wake up! It's like, wake up and smell the coffee. Shit. The social, moral fiber of this country has been fucked for the last century. And you're just realizing that? Oh, man, It's like, what kind of wiener heads are we putting into control over us? Now, voting. Another subject I'm going to get on to here. The way the individual votes does not matter. What it boils down to is an electorate. They decide who becomes president and vice president of this country. Your individual vote, I'm sorry to say, don't count for squat, because the electorate is going to vote the way it feels it should vote, regardless of how the people in there that they're picked to represent vote. So, it's like if your representative puts a certain individual in, well, when people say, well, if you want to change things, you should vote. Well, if that were true, George McGovern would have been president. If that were the facts, George McGovern would have been elected president of this country. But it don't work that way. It just doesn't. That shouldn't show people that they can't trust these boogers. What else could? Watergate was, it was like, these people should know better. They're grown men. What's the deal? Is getting elected that important that they're willing to stoop to what can only be termed as outright thievery to win? Come on, folks, the last time I checked, that was cheating. It's not supposed to work that way. The system isn't supposed to work so that the big man has the ultimate advantage, but that's how it works. Nixon got fucked because he got caught. That's what it boils down to. These boogers lie out their ass. They lie in their sleep. It's like, I'm surprised that they told anybody the truth about anything. Another name for politicians should be liar. It's synonymous. They go together. They're intertwined. It's like, I'm generalizing again, but I've never seen a politician to get in any position of power yet that I can trust. See, another thing about the machine, if you don't fit its little parameters, you'll never get in control. You'll never get to a position where you can make any changes for the little guy. See, anybody who truly believes in the underdog gets mowed into the mill somewhere along the way. They don't survive to make their ideas felt and known because the machine is set up. See, the establishment always tries to kill any new ideas. Nothing is slower to change in a political system. Nothing. See, basically, if a system fails to change, eventually there's civil strife and then there's war. Civil war happens all the time. I mean, unless something truly dramatic happens in the political structure of a country, they go to war with each other over abstract political views. Well, all it really boils down to, if you respect other people's shit and they respect your shit, you don't bother them and they don't bother you, what's the deal? But people have to go out and find trouble. They got to find differences. They got to find some way to hem you in to their idea of the norm. They've got to find some little tool to peck away at your differences and turn you into what they believe is the ideal, the norm. I think that pretty well covers the subject, of what I believe politically and socially and, religiously. Me and my face, the steering wheel, and the point of fury, met with rather catastrophic effects for my face and nose. Girl pulled out in front of me, gave me 10 feet to stop. I was going about 40 miles an hour. Fortunately for her, I seen what was going to happen, so instead of just going straight, if I'd gone straight, I'd hit her in the driver's side door and killed everybody in the car, so I kind of turned, so I hit her front fender instead. But it was still such a hard hit, because I barely got time to get to the brakes anyway, you know, on top of everything else. But I clobbered that 81 beautifully. I clobbered it like nobody's business. The thing that got me, the thing was still running after we came to rest. And the chick that was driving it tromped on the gas, and even though the driver's side front wheel was crushed flat to the ground and just hanging by the lower A-arm into the tree. But that's what finished time. It totaled 2 other cars, me too close. About 70 miles an hour, and he didn't even put on his brakes. Up right now with a bumper. He was driving, crushed his radiator. It was pushed up because I was stopping him a little because, so he just the front of the car so that the unibody broke loose and was hanging down, and I drove away. And that particular little accident got me $117 that was replacing that. Mustang, though I think they owned the car at the time. This little Mustang tried and tore the door off, tore the front fender off, tore the front wheel off. And just after that, 2 days after that, I bought the car. It fried that Mustang. 2 days later, it wouldn't. The old boat wouldn't run after that. It was towed from. The reason it went back into the engine compartment and it crushed the fuel line back against the front of the manifold. So, only thing wrong with it running was that fuel. Started right up. Well, it's a dual headlight car, and only one side of dual beam had wired it up. So I had low beam bright on one side. That got me pulled over one night. And after he's a ways up, I turned on my brights back on, and he thought I had a headlight out. So he went, pulled in, and waited for me, and pulled out behind me and pulled me over. He said, "You got a headlight out." I said, "No, I don't." And I showed him what I had done, and he let me go. I mean, what could he do? I wasn't doing nothing wrong. There wasn't nothing wrong with my car. That shit was fun. So, enough about the beast. I enjoyed the old car while I was around. It's gone now. But anyway, after the accident that messed up my face, I had to have plastic put under my cheeks because all the bones splintered and shattered. It wasn't a pretty sight. Well, actually, for the first couple of days, I didn't feel much of anything from it. The nerves were so traumatized in my face and nose that I didn't get a whole lot of pain at first. But then after that, all the flesh started blackening and swelling, and my nose got about potato size. And it's like it was just, that night I noticed that, you know, I couldn't taste anything. Not that I was much interested in eating, because I just had my face stitched together. It took 50 stitches from this cheek here, all the way over to this cheek here to hold my face, put my face back together after the accident. I didn't really try anything reconstructive at the time because, you know, it wouldn't have been worthwhile with all the trauma in my face. So, too much swelling and bruising and stuff. They had to wait a few months for it to go down. Enough for they could do anything. But anyway, I mean, after the pain started to set in, after the swelling, you know, the nerves started to come back to life, after the shock wore off, you talk about something that wasn't pleasant to feel. I know I wasn't pleasant to look at either. I looked at myself in the mirror and I thought my face was fucking shit. I had a totally grotesque looking face. I wouldn't allow pictures to be taken of me. There's no way. I looked totally grotesque. But anyway, a couple months after the accident, they started putting my face back together. They first inserted plastic under my cheeks to fill them back out. With no cheekbones, my cheeks just hung down. My upper lips had no support. So I had a perpetual frown. Not that I felt much like smiling, but usually I didn't feel anything like smiling. And then they started the process of pulling the skin back together so there isn't as much of a scar. There are a few, you can pick out lines and stuff in the face, and as I get older they'll show up more and more. You can see places under my eyes where the flesh is slightly shiny. That's scar tissue. You see, I caught the steering wheel and it fell in such, it folded over in such a way that it came just underneath the eyes and across the cheeks. I was about a quarter inch from each eye of being blinded. Of being just totally having my eyeball crushed out of my head. Just a millimeter lower, and I definitely be blinded for life. How I avoided any trauma to my eyes anyway is beyond me, because the first sight I seen when I looked into the mirror just after the accident is the bottom of my left eyeball. The white of it was showing underneath the eyelid. I couldn't see out of that eye at all. And I was just seeing out of the right eye. It's like I could see the lower white of that eye. And it totally freaked me for a few seconds. I thought for sure my eyeball was gone. Oh, but shit, the driver of the car, when we were in the ambulance, not that she was really hurt, she did kind of bump her nose a little, but on the window glass, but it was swelled, and that was about it. It didn't break it. But she kept asking in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, is he alright? Is he alright? And I finally got tired of that, because they weren't answering her. So I said, no, I'm not alright. And it's like, that freaked her out. She just about lost it. I think they gave her something to calm her down, actually, but I wasn't paying much attention to her, because I was wondering about myself. By that time, I was seeing out of my left eye again to some degree, and I realized it hadn't been crushed. So I was feeling slightly better about that. And I was just starting to wonder a little bit just about how much damage there might actually be in my face, you know. It was an interesting thing. I was surprised they let me go home from that night from the hospital. They only kept me in outpatient ward for about 4 hours, long enough to stitch my face back together. But I guess they figured there was no real serious damage. Maybe they just didn't give a shit. That's about what I figured. But enough of that. By the way, how did I get on this subject? I hate it when I do that. I run off on a tangent real bad. It's like my poor little brain has this errant wave just running around in it, just waiting for me to open my mouth so I can jump out. You know, it's like, get mad at my brain neurons for that shit. But unfortunately, you can't fire neurons. Fortunately, they don't make anything. Right now, I'm so broke I can't afford to pay attention. But there is one big advantage to not having any money. I don't make enough money in 2 years to qualify for taxes in 1 year. It would take me about 2 years of saving to actually have enough money on hand for them to consider me fit to take taxes. Ain't it a great country? Now, there's another animal I hate. The IRS. That's a vicious animal if ever there was one. I cannot understand the inception of such a creature. The purpose behind the IRS, I guess, basically is to extort money from people. And that's basically what it boils down to. It's extortion. They're taking money from you under threat of putting you in jail if you don't pay them. What is the basic definition of extortion? But threatening people so that they give you money. What does the government do? Why, the IRS says, give us money or we're going to put you in jail for the next 20 years. It's like, if that ain't extortion, what is? Hell, the mafia is only a little bit worse about it. Hell, they may only break your leg. Hell, your leg's gonna heal up in 6 weeks. Government, to put you in jail for 20 years. Well, you know, it's like the mafia is pretty much over and done with. You do it with the government and they haunt you for life. Be late just one time filing your tax return after you spent 20 years in the can for evading taxes for whatever reason. They'll nail you to the wall. Second offense, 45 years. Your ass is gone. By the time you get out then, you're too old to care about taxes if you're even still alive. Hell, you're too old to care about Social fucking Security. Social Security, another scam. Now look, Social Security as an idea itself is good. For what it's turned into, totally another matter altogether. Those that need can't get it. Those that don't really need and have plenty can get it because they have all the little political and, you know, law shortcuts to get around all the little obstacles they put in the way of getting it. But let it be somebody who happens to be disabled or somebody who, you know, was born disabled or whatever. They got to put up a hell of a fight. And those poor people can't afford a lawyer. They can't afford somebody to go to bat for them that knows, you know, all the ins and outs to get them. For fuck's sake. I mean, it's like, oh, bankruptcy. There's another good one. What's the deal? $500 so you can file bankruptcy? Most people, if they have $500 on hand, don't have to file bankruptcy. By the time you get to the point that you're going to file bankruptcy, you more than likely can't dig up $500. There would be a little need for me to file bankruptcy. Maybe. I ain't got $500 exactly. I'd like to file bankruptcy just so, well, just so I wouldn't be bothered by it. People like the Student Loan Association that I happened to borrow money from when I was going to school. Bad move. See, at the time, didn't have a car, couldn't get back and forth to school, which was almost 50 miles each way. It's kind of difficult to do that without a car. Anyway, I told them I was getting to school by the way that my mom was coming in and dropping me off at school, and I was usually getting a ride home at night. Once or twice I didn't get a ride. Either people I usually got a ride with didn't show up at school, or they had other plans. But anyway, it was a little bit rough, spending the night sleeping on top of a table. I mean, you know, a jacket does not make a very good pillow. And, you know, it does not bode well politically with the staff at the school. But, fuck, I was paying $3,000 a month to go there, or $3,000 a quarter, that is the government place, VA. And damn if I wasn't going to take advantage of some of that. I mean, shit. It's not like I was going to go outside and sleep. But anyway, back to the story. I told them that there's no way I could keep doing that. Without a car, there's no way I could keep going back and forth to school. It just wasn't possible. So anyway, they said, well, we can probably get you a grant. We might also be able to get you a student loan. They said, well, we'll get you a student loan so you can get a car. Look, I told them straight off, I don't want a student loan because I know student loans have to be paid back, and I don't want that responsibility, so know what's going to happen as soon as I get out of this shit hole. I'm not going to get a job because I refuse to cut my hair. At that point, Margot, the guidance counselor at school, chirped me and said, yeah, you will. You'll cut your hair. Well, I've been out of school since July of 1989. It's now July of 1992. Margot, it's not cut yet, and it's not going to be. You were wrong! So, you know, that's what that boiled down to. See, and I told him, look, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get out of school. I'm going to be fucked for a job because I won't change my views or the way I dress or do things. And, you know, you boogers are going to be, the loan company is going to be coming after me to get their money. And there's not going to be a whole shit lot I can do about it. Well, things have come to pass just as I thought. They finally talked me into taking a loan, and yeah, I got a vehicle together and was able to get back and forth to school and finish out school. But things happened as I thought they would. I'm not a pessimist, but it would have been a lot easier to stop school for 3 months till you get things together, so I wasn't spending money trying to get back and forth to school. Try to get a vehicle together, and then things might have worked out better. I wouldn't have had to take the loan, and I wouldn't be in the shit and hold myself permanently down. The thing is, if I could file bankruptcy, then they couldn't come after me. They'd be fucked. See, the people coming after me now are not the loan company itself, but the state. The state of Ohio, who guaranteed that student loan to be paid. They had to pay it. So now they come after me. First they've hired, right now they've got daggone collection agencies. I don't like talking to collection agencies. I'll try to be civil with them up to a point until I start to tell them, asking me if I realize I owe this loan and that. Then I get a little torqued at him and give him holy hell. Hell, they call me, and I didn't want to hear from him anyway, and I hope he does get torqued when I tell him to go to hell. But, well, I've been real rude with him on the phone. But generally the same one won't call twice. One time they had this sweet old lady call, it's like, she was trying to be nice and civil, so I was civil with her. Hell, I didn't want to, go after some poor woman that was trying to supplement her Social Security. But I told her straight out, hey, I don't have no money to pay this, and there's no use in you people keeping us. And it just won't work. I can't pay you. You can't annoy me into paying you. And if you sue me, they're going to tell you just like they'll tell anybody else that tries to sue me. I ain't got the money to pay you. Even if you took everything I own, and damned if I'm going to let you do that, if you took everything I own, it wouldn't amount to the money I own. $1,600 measly dollars, and I don't have enough stuff. And it's like, I'm not worth coming after. You dicks are just as well off not coming after me, because you're going to spend a bunch of money you don't need to spend. This is not going to do you any good if you spend it anyway. And see, what gets me is this is the state of Ohio. With the fact that I've gone to shrinks for the better part of the 11 years. I'll make that 13 years, off and on. That's a good basis for mental stability. And see, that's what amazes me about them putting me in the Marine Corps, or taking me in the Marine Corps in the first place. In the second place, putting me in a MOS that would entail them teaching me things like there are 13 ways to kill a human being in the head area alone. With your hands. With your hands. That's all you need. Pencil. This right here, for example, it's a deadly weapon. Electrical cord, deadly weapon. I mean, it's like the things they taught, the things I can turn into weapons. It's like, it was downright stupid of them to teach me shit. When I've got a record of, going back and forth to shrinks. Not that I was ever really so emotionally unstable that I was ever considered a candidate to be in a mental hospital. Although I did have the last therapist, well, I call him a therapist to be respectful, I guess. Last therapist I had said that I was just sane enough that he didn't have me committed. He was kidding. I hope he was kidding anyway. He said I was just sane enough that he didn't commit me to the mental institution. That was just the side of saying, it's like, I think he was kidding. He acted like he was kidding. I hope he was kidding. What?
Well, tough shit.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm not giving up my freedom that easily. Think I'm gonna have myself committed? No, I make sure I'll do something really off the wall that they have to commit me. I have no choice. My dad would probably love to have me committed, and then he could say I was the reason I was the way I was because I was mentally incompetent. See, my dad has this thing about being right. Even when he's wrong, he feels he's right. And see, you know, my dad probably thinks that I must be devil's spawn. I couldn't possibly have came from the world because I'm so totally different. I don't know if it's that I'm totally different in basic reaction or if my experiences in life have been so totally different from what he experienced that there's no way I could develop the same. And it's true. I mean, I grew up totally different from my dad. My dad had, you know, reasonably good relationships with his parents and most individuals. I, on the other hand, was so ostracized and such a loner that there was no chance of me developing to a social degree like he did. I'm not a socialist. I don't really give a whole lot of a shit about what people think about me. You know? And the thing is, you run into trouble in that respect because the simple fact of the matter is that people don't think you're, well, I am off the wall, but if people think, you know, that you're different, you know, it's the concept of see the stranger, fear the stranger, hate the stranger, kill the stranger. You know, if you threaten their thoughts and ideology and how they conduct their lives, if they see you having fun at what you're doing and you're not doing what they're doing, watch out. They're going to come down on you like shit. You know, bird's ass. It's about what it boils down to. And I don't mean a rinky-dink sparrow. I mean one of these motherfucking the size of, you know, a football. I mean, giant turds. And they'll stop at nothing to turn you into something just like carbon copies. They would be better off cloning everybody. That way they could keep the same people going, right? You know? Let's not have kids. Kids are too different. Kids develop too many ideas of their own. Let's just make carbon copies of us. Then we don't have to worry about it. Now, you know, when you force a kid into a box, you know, you make him act a certain way because everybody else's kids should act that way. You know, you give a kid good basic values and he's going to do what's right regardless. You start putting this stupid bullshit in his head, you're going to fuck up. You're going to fuck up all that delicate wiring up there. That's why we got so many screwed up kids. You know? And it isn't really just, it isn't parents so much as it is the overall system. The system does not give parents good tools to work with their kids. They feed them bullshit at school. Kids are usually pretty reasonable up until the time they reach school age. Then they get into this political, social element called school, and it fucks them. They gotta learn to totally relearn everything they've ever been taught. Because now they're reacting in a system totally alien to anything they've ever dealt with. In a system of, you know, like I said, a pecking order. That is, I'm over you, you're over him, and so on. See, I never fitted in well with that system. Never did. See, I think what happened to me is growing up with my two older brothers, so much older than me, and I was a novelty to them, and they started feeding me ideas that they were into at that point in time. In other words, they were into things like making me listen to Jimi Hendrix, you know, well, not making me, I guess I enjoyed it. Hell, my first record that I ever had was Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experienced? It's the original 1967 copy. It's no longer listenable. I only keep it for the sentimental value, the simple fact it's the first time I've ever had it. The cover's about worn. You know, it's in pretty sad shape, but that it's the first that I ever had, and it was given to me in 1972. You know, when I was 7 years old. It got played quite a few times on my little closing play at 45 RPM, and something must be played third. Jimi Hendrix at that speed sounds pretty intense, especially to a 7-year-old mind that's already at 2 sampling the pleasures of LSD 25. See, my brothers were into some really serious shit at the time. The thing is so many different cross-dressers, and I'll talk to a lot of them, and I've asked them about things, but none of them have any similar experience or anything. I don't know if it's so much that is in that I had a lot more contact with females at that point in time than I had with my dad. I mean, I had female cousins that babysat me. My mom, you know, was around me most of the time when I was awake. My dad worked second shift. So, you know, when I was awake and active, he was either asleep or at work. So I didn't have much contact with him for the first 5 years of my life. In fact, back to the first 8 years of my life, he must have at the time worked second shift. Yeah, that could have had a lot to do with it. You know, something sure twisted the wiring up there enough that, you know, some kids, you know, it never affects them. Some, you know, boys, it just never affects them. It doesn't do it to them, you know. But some of us fortunate few have a few idiosyncrasies anyway that are just waiting to be written upon by such an instance, such a large amount of female input. And I have an idea, it's a theory really, that one of my female cousins had this thing about dressing me up in female clothes when I was real little. Now, the first instances I remember myself doing it for myself was when I was 5. You know, I had kind of like this fuzzy recollections when I was real little, and there's this picture when I was about 2 years old and 10 months when my mom was in the hospital having my younger sister, of me tramping around in go-go boots.
Go-go boots.
Go-go boots and my rubber pants. And I think that maybe if those recollections are anywhere near true, and she was dressing me up in girls' clothes and giving me that kind of attention, then maybe that's probably what it is. You know, a combination of things. So when you're that little, you're kind of fucked. People ride on your psyche all the time and don't realize that they're doing it. You end up with triggers when you're older that are not your fault, but you're ostracized from them because you have. Now, it's like I said, I went through 3 shrinks between the time I was 14 and the time I went in the Marine Corps, trying to figure me out. You know, when it got right down to it, my last therapist said that don't keep trying to figure yourself out, you know, just accept yourself as yourself, and, you know, you'll get along fine. Because I guess what people have the hardest time accepting is themselves, and they tend to be, I don't know, they tend to think because they're not happy being them, you know, they have to prove that they're right, you know. I don't know. Humans and ants, the 2 species on the face of the planet that make war against each other. Don't know what excuse the ants have. They all look pretty much the same to me. But I guess that's a bit bigoted. I don't know any ants personally, actually. Don't get around much in, you know, Antville. Or don't know much about their social, you know, customs. Well, you know, I know they're insects and they have 3 body sections and 6 legs and 2 antennae. But haven't gone to any ant farms lately and hung out, you know, and talked to them. People would think you're really lost if you did, and it's like, that guy's really strange, man. He's talking to the insect and ant farmer. What's his problem? Basil, you're hogging the picture. Now, I take Basil here. He has no interest in politics whatsoever. The only interest he has is getting petted, getting perfectly watered too, and taking a dump once in a while, taking this. But he doesn't know anything about money, doesn't really know anything about power, doesn't give a shit. He's a cat. Cats have an outstanding attitude. Cats should run the world, that's all there is to it. But then, of course, we'd have really weird holidays, wouldn't we? The festival of the holidays. We'd all be eating 9 lives. Basil, I'm sorry, I just can't deal with that kind of political system. I'm sorry, I'm not going to vote for you. Basil says, I don't care if you vote for me, just feed me. Feed me and we'll get along fine. The most intelligent eyes I've ever seen in a cat. One thing I've found common to all cats is that every single one hate to be laughed at. If a cat thinks you're laughing at it, it pisses it off. I don't know how cats really see laughter. You know, it's like, I don't think they have any similar, or from, you know, the standpoint of an analogy, I don't think they have any kind of laugh. I mean, you know, I don't think they've got a, well, maybe they do have a sense. The cats are have a very dark side to them. It tends to show through them most of it. But then how else can you know, how else could you be with the brain development a cat has and the way it has to survive, and, you know, in its true environment. I mean, killing with your claws and teeth and eating and devouring is not exactly considered socially acceptable for humans to do. We're not even equipped for it. We don't have the nails. But I don't particularly want to fall. I know somebody who bought some catnip thinking it was herb one time. I never managed to. I fortunately found out, you know, I seen, you know, watched him do it, and it's like, I'm no never to do that. Couldn't help ribbing him about it, but hey. So far I've been lucky. I've never bought anything. It's like, ew, man, this stuff tastes like pencil shavings. They take it apart and find out, what? Pencil shavings? You see, my tactic was to get them back in such a way that you couldn't trace it directly to me. I could be low and underhanded when I wanted to, and I never fought fair. Well, you see, the thing is, most high school scuffles that I got into were just people that, because I was a relatively short individual and didn't have a lot of friends and was a loner and didn't click with any one group, I was a favorite target picked on by a lot of kids.
You had no pigeonhole.
So, you know, it got down to, I got tired of being picked on when I was about in the 10th grade. I finally reached the point that it's gone as far as it's going to go. And the kid picked a fight with me who wasn't particularly real popular himself, but he was establishing brownie points with everybody else by picking a fight with me. And he came behind me, he pushed me 3 times, and the next thing I realized when I finally come out of the red haze that I got into, when all this occurred, the guidance counselor and the principal have hold of my arms and they're dragging me back from him. You know, in time between him last pushing me and me turning around, I kind of remember hitting him the first time. But I guess in between, I hit him 2 or 3 times, and finally pushed him onto the ground and started slamming his head into the concrete floor. And then just started wailing on him back and forth with both hands like this. And that sent him to the emergency room. And I guess I kind of fucked up his jaw and his eyes. He got 6 stitches above his right eye. I wailed into him. And the guidance counselor wanted to send me up for psychiatric evaluation because they thought for sure I was going to kill the kid. So I didn't. I got 10 days vacation for it. Kind of made people leave me alone for a while. Of course it picked back up, it always does. Never really solved a whole lot of anything. Gave me a little bit of breathing space was about all, but violence never really solved anything for sure. Because, kids have to have somebody to pick on. They've got to have somebody at the bottom of the pecking. Unfortunately, I was that poor individual. I was going to ask you too anyway, because my shoulder's starting to kink up a little. But I think that pretty much covers my lifelong history. That pretty much covers, I think I've pretty well covered most things adequately. Except for getting run over by a car. I haven't covered that one. That was pretty interesting. That occurred June 14th of 1985, 2:30 p.m. I was on road guard, stopped the traffic, the car didn't stop. Matter of fact, he didn't stop after he ran over me, he just kept right on going. Got a good old compound fracture of the right leg, my right knee. Dislocated my right shoulder, compounded my spine, fucked up one hip. Didn't really dislocate it or anything, just kind of strained the hell out of it. But that's what happens when 160 pounds of human being gets nailed by 36 pounds of car. It hurts. I was lucky though, because I didn't go underneath, I went over top. Matter of fact, I went over top, as an airborne over the top of the car. He hit me with the front bumper in the right leg, and it was enough force to totally flip me around, and I bounced off the rear trunk lid of the car, which is what dislocated my shoulder. And then when I came to rest, I looked down at my leg, and it was back around like this. Matter of fact, the bottom of my boot was up here, and toes were sticking up that way, and it's like, that's not right. Something's totally fucked up here. So I kind of sat up, looked down at my leg, and one bone was poking out that way. The other 2 bones were poking out this way. Wow! My knee was all screwed around, and it's like, wow, man, that totally fucked. And it's like I tried to move my right arm, and my shoulder went, it was like, wow, that's fucked too. And it's like I proceeded to pass out soon afterward because the shock started to wear off, and shit started to hurt. And it's like I felt totally fucked and disoriented and shit. And I kind of went in and out of consciousness for between the time that the MPs got there and the ambulance got there, and they got me in the ambulance, got me in the hospital, knocked me out, sent me to surgery. They bandaged up my, of course they disabled or inserted the ball into the socket of my shoulder, relocated it, I guess, and immobilized it, and pinned my right leg together after the compound fracture, which I still got a nice healthy start. Always will. I've still got 4 surgical steel pins in that leg. Got a totally fucked up right knee that they pulled the cartilage out of like total dumbass. Screwed up all the tendons and ligaments on the inside of my knee. They never will be right. I mean, they've done surgery on it 3 times and they've never managed to correct all the problems yet. The only real true correction for all of it would be to totally replace the knee from about there to below where it broke, and, you know, get into the good zone, because all the bone up here splintered and they just screwed the pins right into it. I mean, be damned if it ever works right again. And the shoulder has rheumatoid arthritis, which is real fun stuff to have. I mean, I don't need this shit. I'm too young for it. The simple fact is, it's a progressing condition that never stops. From the day you start acquiring it, the day you die, it develops and gets worse. Until the point it cripples you, because there's no cure. Eventually it works its way into, you know, it starts out in a few affected joints, usually ones that have been injured, like my shoulder and hip and stuff. I might even have it in my knee, but my knee's hurt since the day this happened. I got ran over, and it hasn't quit yet, so it's hard to gauge. It goes from the dull ache, like it caused a headache, to throbbing, fiery pain on, like if I rack it, run into things with it, come down too hard on the leg itself. Or it just happens to be a particularly cold day and I go outside from a warm room. That's something like that. Had a bad trip. It's like, you can't live on it. You know, it's like, well, here's what gets me about it, you know. They treated me great while I was what they wanted. But the second I get fucked up, they're pretty much fuck you. Yeah, and that's what galls the living hell out of me. And and if anybody expects me to be patriotic to this political industrial machine, forget that shit. They done gave me the lowdown on what they think of me and what they think I'm worth. See, that's why I don't value other people's opinion of me very highly. Because it doesn't, all that don't mean shit. It really doesn't. I value my friends' opinion of me to a degree, but, you know, if they couldn't deal with my idiosyncrasies, I don't think they'd be my friends. You know? And anybody that's not my friend, it's not necessarily my enemy, but I couldn't care less what they think. If I could care any less, believe me, I would. But I can't, so I don't. You know? What it boils down to. I think that pretty much covers the way I feel, think, and why I am the way I am, as much as I know. Well, I ain't Walter Cronkite. Sure as fuck ain't outshot a cotton. Wouldn't want to be. I wish I had their money. Not because I care much about money, but it'd be nice to have a little bit of money, so I could shit on the establishment for a while. Actually, I think the only reason I'd want money is so I could find ways to fuck with the establishment and not get fucked back in return. It'd be the only reason I'd want to be rich. The government would not want me to be rich. They really would not. Definitely would not want me to have hold of a couple $1 billion. Because I would make their days so miserable. Yeah, well, you know, it's like, I'd have things done. Like, I'd dig tunnels to Mexico just so we could let the Mexicans. I've never had nothing against the Mexicans. I mean, some American workers do because the Mexicans are taking jobs that Americans used to hold, but that's only because the Mexicans can live on $30 a week. Americans can't. Americans couldn't if things were cheap enough. I mean, you know, it's not the Mexican's fault. He's just trying to make a living. You know? He's just trying to get enough money so he can eat and have a roof over his head. So when it rains, his tequila doesn't get watered down. You know? It's like, that's all he, you know, that's all he's after. He's not trying to take food from the mouths of American babies, you know. Now, here's another issue, abortion. Now, I've got, you know, my own views on what's life and what's not life. But damned if I'm going to tell somebody else, because they don't want to support a child, they don't want to bring a child into this world, that they shouldn't have an abortion. Because the simple fact of the world matter is the world is overpopulated as it is. And the world being the way it is, and things going the way they are, and if that don't go, or just go away. Cut off. Yeah. Careful, your mom might be slightly pissed with that. Or if we said it, of course she did. But anyway. I got something to say.